Brian, real quick, talk about how you got to DeMatha, right? Like, you're from Fort Washington. I know you played every sport in the book, but did you grow up knowing about DeMatha? Did you go to DeMatha games? Like, how did you end up in Bill McGregor's office?
Well, it's interesting. So back then, so I graduated in high school in 97. So, I mean, we're talking about 92, 93 before I even got to the chance to go to DeMatha. We were looking at opportunities. We're looking at schools, and DeMatha wasn't really on my radar. But what I did know is that a lot of the public schools, unfortunately, weren't strong enough to send their students, even if they were great athletes, to school. They weren't getting the right test scores. Some of the students weren't taking the right required courses so they can actually be eligible for the clearinghouse. They used to have a NCAA clearinghouse back in the day. Um, and a lot of that just wasn't happening at some of the public schools in our area. And so through AAU tournaments and stuff like that, I caught the eye of Chris Basha over at DeMatha,
Yeah.
Bill McGregor over at DeMatha. And they said, we would love to have you on the team. We would love to have you come out and play football and basketball. And so really that was the gateway for me. I didn't really know anybody at DeMatha. I didn't know anybody that had went to DeMatha, but I knew it was a great academic and sports school. And so I wanted to be in the upper echelons, but more importantly, I wanted to make sure that my high school education was quality,
Sure.
and that we found the right place.
Yeah, sure. That's great. You talked about AAU. I know you're a basketball guy too. What was your first love? Was it hoops or was it football? Going into DeMatha, are you going in there saying, you know what, I'm going to be a tailback or I'm going to be a point guard? Or did it matter? You said, I'm going to play both.
Well, I wanted to play both. My first love has always been basketball, and I still love basketball probably more than football. Um, I just wanted to go in there and compete. I thought I was one of the better players in our area, especially in basketball and football, to be honest with you. And I wanted to go in there and compete. And so, really, when I look back over my career, a lot of people have heard this story, but my freshman year at DeMatha, I didn't play at all. Literally didn't play one play on offense, defense, or special teams.
Crazy.
One of the most shocking things in my world, one of the things that kind of broke me down as a person, because I thought I was good enough. I was one of the better kids in Boys and Girls Club, but going into DeMatha is a different level. You got to step your game up, and there was a lot of more kids that were more developed and more ready to play than I was. And so I went there and I sat on the bench, and it was humbling. It was a lesson, but it also teaches you that you got to work a little bit harder. And so, it's one of those kind of adversity types of things, right?
Yeah.
Adversity builds character, but just as importantly, it reveals character, things that you have inside of you to be able to get over the hump in so many different ways. And so it was a great test for me, but it made me work a lot harder at my craft, made me be a better student of the game. And because of that, I was able to excel.
No doubt. Did you play a spring sport at DeMatha or no?
No, so after basketball season, so my freshman year I played football and then basketball. Started on the basketball team. I actually was really really good at baseball, and so I went out for the team. And after a couple of practices, I was just like, I just didn't have time. And you're 14,
Yeah.
15, and after playing football and basketball in a high school experience where it's a rigorous academic school, I just needed some time off. And so I kind of stepped away from baseball, which now I'm looking at some of these contracts that these baseball players are acquiring. And it's like, what are you doing? That was a huge mistake. But it was just one of those things at the time where, football and basketball was on the top of my list. Baseball was kind of secondary. And unfortunately, now at 45, I look back like, well, hold on, you could have made a career at this thing as
Yeah.
well.
That guaranteed money, right?
Guaranteed money. That always feels good, right? In any sports you play, you want to try to find that guaranteed money.
No kidding. Especially in high school, if you have the opportunity to make guaranteed money coming out of high school,
That's right.
sign me up. Yeah, I love playing baseball too. I played all three. And when I got to DeMatha, I was playing JV hoops at Good Counsel, and I transferred to DeMatha. And when I got to DeMatha, Morgan was like, "Why don't you continue to play basketball?" And I regret it to this day. I mean, I tell all these kids, play everything as long as you can because it's going to end really quick.
Yeah.
And for me to make that decision to stop playing hoops and to stop playing baseball my sophomore year at DeMatha, I really regret that. Obviously, everything worked out for me, but I tell these kids, I'm like, man, if even the youth kids, I'm like, play it all as long as you can because it doesn't last forever, right? So
Yeah, you definitely, and so many kids now are like, I want to play basketball all year round. Well, you can do that, but there are so many other skills that are developed by playing other sports, and you just never know.
No doubt.
Um, and most importantly, here's the thing: you may never be a professional in any sport. The odds that you will become a professional in any sport are just so low. However, if you can learn the skill set, if you can learn how to learn, if you can learn the sportsmanship, and most importantly, if you can get into college for free, then you have an opportunity to just excel at life. And that's what sports are really all about: making the friendships, learning, and trying to get into college for free. If
No
you can
doubt.
do that, that just helps you so far in life, and at a young age.
100%. It allows you to open up other doors and other opportunities and meet new people and build a new network. Even though you might not be the best at a different sport, it opens up so many other opportunities. To your
That's
point,
right.
if you can use all those opportunities to open up other doors as you get to that collegiate level, even better. You talked about some adversity right early on by not playing in high school. And I know you went through some injuries too, right? And I
Yeah.
always ask these guys when I have them on the call is, how did you deal with some of these adversities? What were they, right? And how did you deal with the adversities to set you on that path to succeed down the road, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've already kind of talked about the just not playing my early on in my career, and
Right.
with that, it made me work a lot harder. Going into my sophomore year, I worked so much harder. Physically, I got a little bit bigger, but mentally, I got so much stronger. I felt that there was nothing that could happen that sophomore year that would phase me, and my preparation skyrocketed. And so I wanted to be as prepared as I possibly could, just in case I got a chance to play.
Right. Right.
And the way that it worked out was the starter, who was really, really good, great player, named James Dunnigan. He actually ended up getting in trouble academically. So maybe he didn't pass one of the classes or something to that effect. And he had to sit out for a game or two. And that
Yep.
allowed me to play. And then the coaches, they kind of saw, well, this guy can actually play. This kid can play. And so, um, I tell all the young people, listen, even if you don't have your opportunity yet, you have to prepare right now as if your opportunity is right around the corner. Because if you get the opportunity and you're not prepared, then you'll never get the opportunity again. And so, when we talk about adversity, it's an opportunity for you to learn about yourself, but also an opportunity for you to prepare and work even harder for that next opportunity that you're going to get. And what ended up happening was I played very well my sophomore year in both basketball and football. My junior year, I played well. I played behind Tyron Turner,
Yep.
a great running back. Ended up going to the University of Richmond, one of my good friends. But I was really, really good, and I was getting calls and letters from every coach in the country, at every big school in the country, which was great for me. And then I go into my senior year in that August of '96. We practiced at one of these, municipal fields, and I stepped in a hole and I
Oh,
tore my ACL. And back in '96, if you tear your ACL, it wasn't a 1, 2, 3, 4 month
no
injury.
doubt.
It was
No.
a year-long injury. And luckily, Wendy nursed me back to health just enough that I could play 4 or 5 games my senior year. So
Yeah.
all the schools that wanted me at that time, they were like, "Well, we don't want a kid that just tore his ACL. You're not, you're good, but you're not good enough to overcome that." And
Sure.
that's kind of how I ended up at DeMatha. But again, it was adversity. It was an opportunity for myself to kind of prove who I am and what I was made of. And those types of opportunities, almost to me, it's like taking a test. Like I want to take tests. It allows me to show exactly what I'm made of, what I know, what I've learned. And I attack those rehab sessions and the opportunity to get better through rehab, just like I was playing in the season. And so,
No
for
doubt.
me, it still was tough. It wasn't hard. It was tough mentally and physically, but we attacked it as if, this is another opportunity for me to get better. And it did reveal some character, and it also certainly built some as well.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I remember that game my sophomore year, so it would have been your senior year at Good Counsel. You ended up getting hurt, and so
Yeah.
you were already hurt though going into that game,
Yeah.
and then you went out. And I remember was it Kenny Dantzler that came in?
Kenny Dantzler. Yeah.
Yeah, so Kenny is a good buddy of mine, obviously my year, and he came in and filled your role. Did you come back to play hoops that season? I can't remember. Did you played basketball too? I remember you having a knee
Yeah.
brace. Was that your senior
Yeah.
year?
That was my senior. So Kenny Dantzler came in and just balled out actually. He
Yeah.
looked really, really good. Um, so my senior year, I came back. I had no scholarship offers. So I'm like, well, I got to find a way to pay for college.
Right.
And so I had to go play basketball. I wanted to play basketball anyway, but I needed to play basketball to try to find a scholarship opportunity. And so one day, Coach Wooten came in the office. He said, called me in. He said, listen, Villanova's here to see you play. Now, back in the day, we grew up in the age of the Big East, Syracuse,
Yeah.
UConn, Georgetown, Villanova battling. And I'm like, oh my goodness. In my mind, I'm thinking Villanova wants me to come play basketball, which I was good at basketball. I wasn't on the Big East level. Um, and so I'm smiling, I'm happy, and I'm thinking he's telling me because he said, listen, Villanova's going to offer you a scholarship. And I was shocked, but I also was happy. And he was like, what are you laughing at and smiling? I was like, well, I've never thought I was going to play in the Big East, play basketball in the Big East. And so Morgan's looking at me like, what? He was like, no, 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 no. Villanova was going to give you a football scholarship, not a you're not no, no, you're not a basketball player. No, no, no. And so it was kind of funny, but I was able to catch the eye of a guy named Stan Drayton. Actually, last year he was a coach of Temple, ended up getting fired, but great coach, great developer. I went up to meet Andy Talley, who was a coach at Villanova University, and it was just a great opportunity. I knew that there was a senior in front of me, and I had an opportunity to play early in my career. And so, because of that, they said, listen, just get in shape, get your knee together, make sure that you're healthy enough to play because we're going to need you to play
Heck
your
yeah.
freshman year. And I got an opportunity.
Heck yeah. Now, you can't tell me this didn't cross your mind because I saw you play hoop, B, and you can hoop. Did it ever cross your mind when you were at Villanova that you said, you know what, maybe I might be able to walk on the hoop team? Or were you like, hey, I'm going to Villanova to play football. I'm done with hoops.
No, I wanted to play basketball. And in fact, when Jay Wright got there, maybe my sophomore, junior year, he said, you should just come out for the team. And I was like, I was kind of back and forth. And, the demand on college athletes is so hard. And
Oh,
at Villanova is a great academic school. And so when you think
yeah.
about it, you're like, all right, I can do both talent wise. But am I going to be able to keep up with school and a social life and do both? It's just hard to do.
Right.
And so I kind of decided against it. But it's one of those regrets, right? You go back and I think about baseball and not playing that. And I think about being able to say whether I played a lot or didn't play at all, the ability to travel the country with a great basketball program and to learn from a Hall of Fame coach. Um, that's one of my regrets as well.
No doubt. No doubt. So you get all the way through Villanova, awesome career. Obviously, one of the best in the conference, one of the best Villanova has ever had, right? And you get to the NFL. You pinch yourself, right? I had a cup of coffee in the NFL, right? But I'm sitting in the locker room next to Brett Favre, right?
Yeah.
And me being an NFL guy, being a football fan, being a Brett Favre fan, like I had to sit there and pinch myself, right? How cool is it for you to look back on your career and say, man, everything that I went through was worth it, right? The blood, the sweat, the tears, the adversity, the injuries, it was all worth it to me because of the NFL career that you had. But that moment that you entered that league, that first week, you're like, damn, this is all pretty cool and it was all worth it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think even if you don't make it to that point, like that's kind of the cherry on the top, right? But even if you go through your high school career and you learn the lessons and you meet the people and you push yourself harder than you've ever pushed yourself, there's a part of me that believes that it's rare that without sports, you just push yourself harder than you've ever to exhaustion. And I think to be great, right? You have to push yourself because there's a point where your body says, all right, that's enough.
Right.
And the great ones say, yeah, yeah, I know what you're saying, body, but my mind is telling me that you can go harder, you can do more. And so even if you don't reach that pinnacle of the sport, the professional side, I think there's so much to learn and so much that you have been able to do to get to that point to play college, to play the high school, which is just great. I think when you get to the pinnacle, the professional levels, um, you do pinch yourself, but unfortunately, you can't really do it until your career is over, right? Because during the time that you're there, you're saying, "What do I have to do to stay on this team?" I'll never forget my rookie year. I I didn't know I was a third round pick, but third round picks get cut. And my agent said to me, he said, listen, going heading into mini camp, don't do anything during this mini camp that's going to get you cut. Just don't do anything. Just go out there, run, be fast, do those types of things. Just don't do anything to get you cut. And I laugh about it now because God forbid, I'm glad I didn't, but that was an opportunity. But you think about it. I walked into a locker room with Brian Dawkins, who's a Hall of Famer, Donovan McNabb, who is a great player, Hugh Douglas. I mean, just Jeremiah Trout. I mean, these were just great men, but also leaders of men that I walked into the locker room and they took me under the wing. Troy Vincent, who's second in command in the NFL, Bobby Taylor. I mean, just so many great players that I had the ability to just be around. And, as a rookie, is basically shut up and don't say anything and just listen.
Right.
Take it all in, right? And just perform and run fast. And for me, I did exactly that. And it was just a great experience.
Yeah. Well, talk about your experience. All right. So let's rewind, right? Rewind. If you could do it again, right? And you know what you know now, right? And you could talk to a young Brian Westbrook, like I'm talking a 16-year-old Brian Westbrook, right? This is a tough question, but what is some advice, or what is the only piece of advice you would give your 16-year-old self, right? Before you walk into those high school doors of like, look, man, this is what you need to do and how you need to do it if you want to get to this level, right? And I know that's a big question, but what, in your mind, what advice are you giving to your 16-year-old self?
I would say make sure that you set your goals, right? If your goal is to make it to the NFL, whether you make it or not, I mean, there are so many opportunities between high school and being 16 and being 22, 21 to make it to professional league, but make a goal.
Yeah.
And then the most important part of making a goal is not doing anything that's out of alignment with your goal, right? If your goal is to get straight A's, and you have to make a decision whether you want to go to a party or study, it's clear what aligns with your goal, right? If your goal is to make it to the NFL and you understand that most NFL players are bench pressing 300 pounds and you best bench press 185, guess what? You don't got time to mess around. You need to get your bench press to 300. And using that as an example, if most players are running a 4.3, then you got to find a way to work on your speed. That means maybe you need to go run track. Maybe you need to go find a speed coach. Find your goal. And that doesn't have to be the NFL. It doesn't have to be the NBA. Maybe your goal is to get college paid for and get a degree and find a well-paying job. And that's a great goal. If that's your goal, only do things that align with that. Because at the end, if you think about your goal and you think about how you can achieve that goal, you'll never be disappointed. You'll never have regret, right? The worst thing at 45 that I could possibly think about now is regret. Did I work harder? Absolutely. But I do regret not playing baseball. I do regret not going out for the basketball. I think about that all the time. I'm talking to my friends. When goal setting, you're realistic. These are achievable goals. These are things that are time bound. Like, hey, you don't have till you're 45 to make it to the NFL. You don't have till you're 45 to bench press 300 pounds. But I need to be able to, over the course of my high school career, be at this point at the end. And if I set those goals wisely, make them attainable, and only do what I'm focused on doing. One of the things is hard because I went into my college career so focused to the point where there were people on campus like, what's wrong with this dude? Like, because I was so focused on getting a job, focused on getting the best education, being a great athlete. And because of that, sometimes not everybody feels that alignment. Not everybody feels like, hey, he can be as social. He can do all these things.
Right.
But it was because I was focused. I was focused on my goal. And I never wanted to be in a position where I was regretting not achieving my goal.
That's right.
So all my focus is solely on that.
Man, that's well said. And you're spoken like a true stag. Did Bill make you write goals on a little note card before every game back when you were playing, or did he just do that for us?
No, he did do that, and I'm not sure. I think he probably implemented, but I'm not sure where it started. But that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
Making those goals, and the other part about goal setting is that if you set your goal, you already understand there's a lot of hard work between where you're at now and to get into your goal.
100%.
So that's going to happen regardless. And obviously, to be able to be successful in life, you got to work much harder than anyone else as well.
100%. No, it's well said, Brian. And I really appreciate you speaking your mind, right, and speaking to our guys. And from a guy who's, started from youth Pop Warner all the way up to the highest level to Pro Bowls, and that speaks highly of who you are as a person and what you've done along the way. So I really appreciate you taking the time to break it down and speak to knowledge to our guys. So B, man, I really appreciate you hopping on here, man. This told you this wasn't gonna be a long call, but I really want to continue our relationship. And obviously you call me if you need anything. I'm always here for you. So I'm going to shoot you a text. So you have my cell, but you're one of the best, and I really value what you have to say. And thank you very much for coming on here today.
Scott, it's super exciting, man. What you're doing with these young people is inspiring, is special. And they have so much to learn from you and what you've been able to accomplish in your career. And probably more important than what you've been able to accomplish in your career, you're giving back, right? And the ability to give back helps the next generation, because there was somebody just like you that's out there that's looking for a mentor, looking for someone to help them. And I appreciate that just as much. And so thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to catching up with you. And, once a stag, always a stag. So super excited, man. Thank you.
Right. That's right. B, thanks for hopping on here, man. Let's keep in touch. All right.
Sounds good. Take care.
Bye.